has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And again she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing.
Sorry. Okay, Grace. 7 verses of 30.
When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. Then said to Jacob, give me children, or I shall die. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God, who has withheld from me the fruit of the womb? And she said, here's my servant Bilhah. Go into her, so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God has judged me, and has also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son.
Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, good fortune has come. So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, happy am I, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found matrix in a field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's matrix.
Through 21.
But she said to her, is it a small matter that you take away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? Rachel said, then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come into me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So they lay with her that night. And God was to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. Leah said, God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband. So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a 6th son. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will honor me because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah.
Okay, got some serious competition going on here. Obviously not good competition. As we jump into this section of Genesis, the first thing to note is that what we're going to find is that there's, as Calvin has described, many adulterous relationships that are going on here. Each time that you have Leah, each time that you have Rachel offering a maidservant, you have, in effect, an ad hoc marriage that is going on, and in fact, that ends up becoming a stumbling block, an adulterous relationship. But we're also going to see fruitfulness out of that. We're going to see that, in fact, these are going to be the 12 patriarchs that are going to be the ones through whom the promises of God are going to be fulfilled. So these are going to be the ancestors of the ones, Moses is actually writing to the people of God, and he's saying, these are your ancestors. There's only one conclusion that you can come to out of this, is this mess that when human beings start to go about trying to figure out, do their own thing, and they don't wait on the Lord, then you get this terrible mess. And so you have the breaking of the plan of God, of the monogamous relationship that God said from in the garden that this is the way that it was supposed to be. That one man, one woman, that's God's plan. And the people of God here, the family of God, has been able to look and see that in the past, that this didn't work so well for Abraham. They look back and they see Hagar, and they see the result of that Ishmael and the maidservant being put out and so forth. And yet we have here the same solution, and somehow they think that this is going to end up with a better option. So, the definition of what is stupidity is doing the same thing again and thinking that you're going to have different outcomes. So that's what these ladies are looking in their history book, and the description from Jacob of what has gone on in the family, and that they end up coming up with that as a solution. Now I'll say also that God uses these adulterous relationships. God uses this polygamy to end up propagating the initial family, the initial people of God, and what that shows of God is that God is a gracious God, a loving God, a God who will keep covenant with his people. God made a covenant with Adam. He made a covenant with Moses. With Noah. He made a covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob, and that plan has been unfolded. We've had the opportunity to walk through that in great detail in the unfolding of that plan, and now we see much of that fulfillment. So as we go in, we keep in mind that tension between the plan and purposes of people versus the plan of God, and how God is orchestrating all of human history in spite of the fact that this all is a mess. The conclusion is that God is a gracious God, that he accomplishes his purposes in spite of the sinfulness of his people. And we can trust him to continue to do that in our day as well, that he will work in spite of us. What we'll see as we go through this particular section is a very clear orientation of the wives to the other wife, of Rachel to Leah, Leah to Rachel, and this competition going on. We're going to see some change in that. We're going to see the praise of God that goes on with Leah, and but we're also going to see that degradation, and going back. So we will go through the names of each one of the patriarchs and these sons that the ladies have, and explain their names, and then go through a connection of what that exactly means. Okay, so Jacob went into Rachel also. He loved Rachel more than Leah. That's a statement that guides the interpretation of the next statement in verse 31, that the Lord saw that Leah was hated. Was Leah hated in terms of that Jacob was intentionally hating, rejecting? That isn't kind of what we see. What we see is that he loved Rachel. Rachel's way up here, and Leah is down here. So it's the comparison that I think that Moses is after, that as he's describing the treatment that Rachel, all of them, that Jacob gives deference to Rachel, that Jacob does not love his wife Leah. Jacob has an obligation. He's married to her, and now he has an obligation. He has a duty to love his wife. And so in spite of the fact that they're in this polygamous relationship, he still has this duty to love Leah and to treat her accordingly. At this time, we also have the insurance policy concept here. What are kids? Kids are kind of an insurance policy against, old age. They didn't have the Golden Oaks. They didn't have the nursing homes and so forth. They have, as part of the family, that people are going to grow old. They're going to stay with their family, and then in their old age, the next generation and the following generation are actually going to take care of the old people because they have raised them up, and given and sacrificed for them. So now, that's that's how they take care of their old people. That's actually a very good plan. That's God's way, but we won't go into that. I'm not giving an editorial comment on that quite yet. But so then, Rachel is barren. Leah was hated, and so because they both want children, and they both want to have, especially sons, because sons can work hard and work the field and produce more crops, and then they end up having more food and therefore more security. Leah ends up, the Lord blesses Leah's womb, and she boom, has 4 kids, and it would appear at least that it's fairly close succession here, that Leah has the sons. Reuben is named Reuben because the Lord has looked on her affliction. Now, we have a dual orientation right here in this first one. So the term Reuben means behold a son. And what is this? Who is the name Reuben? How is Leah addressing that? Is it to God or is it to her husband? And probably a little bit of both, because the next explanation that she gives is because the Lord has looked on my affliction, for now my husband will love me. So we're going to see this conflicted vision in Leah's mind that she's trying, she wants to get her husband's attention. She continues to cry out to the Lord. There's an indication that Leah is a godly woman who does cry out to the Lord, who does raise her voice to the Lord in prayer, and the Lord hears her. So you have some that indication that she's actually there's that godliness that not maybe big indication of it, but some sort of small indication there that she is looking to the Lord. And yet, as we see, as we go through the naming of the sons, then she also has that she's pulled back by this polygamous competition that's going on. So you have the next, yes, go ahead.
Well, I just wonder why she is the one that names the children and not Jacob.
I have no idea. That's a great